they can be helpful. Yes. I like herbs. I'm looking better and better. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully on YouTube they think the same thing. I'm gonna actually lower this. Hopefully it doesn't get too dark. That is too dark. I don't like that. Okay. So I'm not gonna do that. But what I might do is like pivot this a little bit. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pivot this. I'm gonna pivot this. Um, Hello. I know I'm in a new location. I know I got some stuff behind me. I know I got some stuff over here. In a new location for one day. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we got to be talking about constipation. That's a big, big, big thing. It's one of the biggest things that kind of come up, uh, with me and the folks that I work with. And as far as, and this is important for me. So like on my, weight loss journey, which like over 6 months or so, I was able to take off like 25 pounds. And this is, by the way, while I was uh, basically continuing the same exercise routine, continuing the same sleep routine for the most part, just transitioned from chiropractic school from undergrad to chiropractic school. And even through the first couple of years of chiropractic school, had these issues. They were largely constipation was one of the symptoms that was big for me. It manifested, especially when I was in undergrad and college, and kind of continued throughout chiropractic school. At the time, I was drinking a lot of coffee, so that helped a little bit. But obviously, if you're relying on that, that's no bueno. That's not what you want to do. If you're relying on that, that's not going to be healthy for your gut. But the bottom line is, was able to get this waste out of my body over a long period of time, get rid of the weight, and it makes a big difference. If you want to learn more about how I did it, check out the link in my bio, start there, join the free community. It's literally free. What's going on, Anna? Nice to see you. It's really nice to see you, actually. So I would check out the free community. If you want all the tips and tricks, I would say check out the Inner Circle. It's $1 a day. You can now try it for for a week for free. And you could join us next week for our live call. You could ask me any questions you want. Obviously, it's not medical advice, but I could tell you what I would do if I was in a similar situation. It's been a blast showing those. You get access to all my courses. You get access to kind of everything. It's an absolute steal, honestly, for what you get for it. And it's the equivalent of getting a few Starbucks coffees, probably less than you'd spend on it for a week. So with that out of the way, let's talk about constipation. Super common. I'm not going to get too much in the statistics of it today, but I do want to talk about, why constipation is so important. So, when you're detoxing or when you're trying to make health changes, addressing bowel health is, in my opinion, the start. Because if you're not pooping at least once a day, if you're not sweating at least 3 to 5 times a week, if you're not getting enough clean water, ideally structured water from a lot of fruits and vegetables, you're not hydrated properly, you're not going to the bathroom as often as you should. And if that becomes an issue, there can be an overload kind of concept. And this is actually relates to weight loss specifically, because, if the liver cannot, say, get through all the toxic material it does, or it does, it goes to the bowels through bile and ends up trying to be eliminated, and you can't get rid of it via stool, it's going to end up recirculating in the body. And it's going to get to a point where the liver just can't handle it. And the body has this ingenious mechanism to store these things in fat so that it doesn't actually harm tissues in the body. So fat tissue itself becomes a storage place for toxins that cannot be handled at a given moment in time. So it's actually like a genius safety mechanism. The problem is now, obviously, we're exposed to so many things that people before us never have. And it's kind of wild. So, because constipation is such an important part of this, we have to address what are some of the main causes, and then what are some of the ways we kind of help relieve that. Because if we're not doing that, the rest of the detox protocols don't necessarily matter because we have to be able to get rid of the toxins. So 4 ways you eliminate toxins: pee, poop, sweat, breath. This is why deep breathing is really important. And when you sign up, if you sign up for the inner circle, you'll get access to my Breathe Easy Masterclass, part of the subscription. So part of the membership, you get it. Start there. Urination and poop, we're going to talk about today for the most part. And then, sweat. Sweat is fairly straightforward. Ideally, you should be moving, ideally outside every day to some degree. If for whatever you're injured, you can't move, saunas are great. There's other ways to sweat, but the bottom line is you have to be sweating on a regular basis. If you're not sweating enough, that is a topic for another day. We'll get to that. We're going to focus on the constipation. So let's get into it. Now, our digestive tract. Well, let's talk about the small intestine first, because we have to talk about the small intestine and then the large intestine. Now, the small intestine is primarily where absorption is going to take place. It's 3 parts. We have the duodenum, we have the jejunum, and we have the ileum. The duodenum is the smallest part. That's essentially where your pancreas and your liver, gallbladder are going to secrete all these digestive juices to help alkalize the acidic chyme that comes out from the stomach. And then it also secretes a bunch of different digestive enzymes to break down finish really digesting the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So the large intestine, though, there's not a ton of absorption. Now, you will absorb water, you will absorb certain minerals. If stuff is stuck in there, you can potentially absorb certain toxins. But that's largely where your microbiome is going to be located. It's in the large intestine, in the colon. What's interesting is actually the digestive tract, specifically the colon. It develops really early in the embryo stages of life. It's really cool. It actually, the digestive tract and the spinal cord are some of the first structures to kind of take place as an embryo is growing, which is really fascinating. You know, you might hear of the gut as the second brain. In my opinion, it might actually be the first brain, but it's because it's that important. And we have literally this enteric nervous system that connects the intestines to the central nervous system and the brain. And there's so many different connections between the two. We're just beginning to kind of elucidate that, which is really cool. But when you get backed up, this can cause some issues with those communication pathways and really cause some real issues. So let's talk about being backed up. Now, one of the first things people will run to is, say, doing enemas, especially if it's been a while. I do believe that enemas may have a place for some people. Like I said, I've never used enemas with any of my patients or any of my clients. I generally don't recommend them. The biggest reason for that is I find that they can become addictive. So it's not that they don't necessarily work. It's that if you rely on them and the bowels you don't have that migrating motor complex. So it's this peristalsis that moves things along so that you can have a bowel movement. It doesn't fix that. And again, if you rely on it, the bowels are still going to be sluggish. So it's really important to kind of keep that in mind, because you don't want to rely on one thing to get you through it. There's the same thing with herbs too. So like senna or cascara sagrada, which are 2 that you would use to help get through this, they can be addicting. I don't recommend taking them for longer than like a week to 10 days at a given time without a break, because again, it could cause some issues. And why, when I recommend this stuff, you use it at certain times. So just keep that in mind. But before we get into the how, let's talk about the why. So the why are you constipated? There are a ton of reasons as to why. Now, like I said, so the enemas, we kind of went through that. The other thing with enemas too, they're super inconvenient. You usually have to buy like a pack. If you're doing a coffee enema, you have to continue to buy coffee. Generally, it's got to be pretty high grade coffee, because do you want to put pesticide coffee up your butt? I don't. I know colon cleansing kits, they'll go like $275 for like 21 days. Do the math. That's going to run you like over like $4,500 a year, we don't need to be, spending that type of money on enemas. In my opinion, there's much cheaper ways to do it. And you definitely don't need to deal with that personally. So what are some of the causes of constipation? One of the biggest ones is, personally, it's going to be low fiber intake. If you're following a standard American diet, you're going to end up with standard American health results. And if you look at them, they are not great. I was talking with a patient yesterday. He's kind of starting his health journey, had an episode, and ended up getting calling an ambulance. And the ambulance bill ran him, I think it was like $1,900 for just the ambulance. Never mind the actual visit. So when you talk about like investing in your health, or if you're investing in your sickness, i.e., processed foods, dairy, refined carbohydrates, like you're investing in that, and then these bills add up very quickly. One of those is low fiber intake. If we're not getting the high quality, especially raw fruits and vegetables, if you want to talk about structured water, that is where the highest concentration of structured water is going to be. It's going to be in fruits and vegetables primarily. So, and what comes with that? The fiber. Why is fiber important? The biggest reason it's important, it's going to help strengthen that migrating motor complex to push food along. It's going to build the bulk so that the muscle, literally the muscle contractions of the digestive process, can push things along so that you can push things out. It does take some time. I believe the numbers are like anywhere, but the standard American is consuming like 12 to 15 grams of fiber a day. Now, most quote unquote health experts will say 30 grams is good, and that would be great. I find ideally when you're talking about optimal health, it's probably 50 plus grams a day. What I will say though is you need to build up a microbiome to handle that. So I wouldn't go from 15 grams to 50 a day. Chances are you might experience some bloating. It might make the constipation worse short term. You have to think of it very similar to going to a gym. You have to work out these things like a muscle. So, because it actually is, it's literally a muscular complex that pushes things along, just a different type of muscle. So, if I go to the gym, say I haven't been in the gym in 3 years, and and I try to bench press 300 pounds, what's going to happen is one of two things. I can't get the bar up, or I can get it up and I'm really going to hurt myself. You have to start, say, at, maybe my body weight. I'll start at, 170 pounds, and then work my way up. And over time, over weeks and months, I can build up to that. So you have to think of the same thing with fiber. This is why I think a lot of people get confused or think plants are going to kill them, or some sort of idiotic ideation they come up with. It's literally similar to going to the gym. You have to slowly build up. So I recommend usually, this is where juicing and blending comes really, really handy, because some of this stuff will already be broken down. But blending is definitely really helpful for this, which is why I love using the superfoods I do. It's why I love adding fruits and vegetables to smoothies, because you can slowly build that up and it's less of a strain. I generally recommend increasing like anywhere between 5 to 10 grams of fiber per week until you build up to that point. So low fiber, that's, I would say, the biggest, most obvious one when it comes to constipation. That and dehydration, which we'll get to. Societal pressures, believe it or not, is a big one. This was a big one for me. So when I went to college, I always had an issue going to the bathroom. So like in public restrooms. And it took me like weeks. I would be backed up for days at a time because it was something I was not comfortable doing. So that becomes a big thing. So this might just be something depending on where you are, getting more comfortable with that, being comfortable doing uncomfortable things takes some time, but it really goes a long way. And sometimes that's an underlying thing that goes overlooked. So I want to mention that. Antibiotics, or really most medications, are going to do this. Even like low grade antibiotics or one round of antibiotics can really cause an issue with constipation, because these antibiotics are indiscriminate. They are going to affect the good microbes in your gut, even if it's only for a few days. But even if you go, hey, doc, I haven't taken antibiotics in years. Great. Are you eating all organic foods? Because if you're not, you're going to be getting at least some glyphosate on a regular basis. And glyphosate is literally an antibiotic. So sometimes it could be detoxing the glyphosate out of your body. There are some things that we use to do that. Different types of different herbal blends. Which if you want, message me about it. I could send you my favorite one, which is Biomedic. So that's a big one. So that's another one. Antibiotics is a big one. Mucoid plaques is a big one. So this is, or biofilms, it kind of the same thing. This is, again, can happen from antibiotics, can happen from poor diet. But if these plaques build up on the intestinal walls, and that can include things like parasites, yeast, etc., they're going to inhibit your ability to absorb stuff. So that is something that really kind of needs to be addressed. My favorite thing to use for this is biocidin. I actually just posted a story of someone I've been working with who's used biocidin more recently, and is instantly seeing her skin clear up. We know the skin is associated with better digestive health. So that's a big one. Biocidin, either the LSF, I prefer the tincture. It's great. Also really good for kids. Absolutely one of my favorites, along with zeolites, to kind of help detox, break some of that stuff out and get it out. So that could be a reason for constipation. Cigarette smoke. So usually, interestingly, smokers might not have issues relieving themselves, but some people can be really sensitive, and often this could be like a secondhand type of thing. So if you're not a smoker, for example, and you're around people who smoke, sometimes that could be a reason for constipation. A big one, big one is holding on to trapped emotions. And this could be anger. It could be more liver gallbladder related when you're talking about anger and resentment. It could be worry, which is more related to your stomach, or it could be letting things go, literally and figuratively. This is associated with the colon, with the metal element in Chinese medicine. So again, sometimes emotional stresses, if you have trapped emotions, if you're holding on to these things, it's going to affect your ability to go to the bathroom. And you'll be surprised, like if you're able to use whatever tool you want. It could be EMDR, it could be NAT, it could be body code, it could just be meditation, sitting in silence and feeling whatever you need to feel. You'd be surprised how much easier it is to go to the bathroom. But it is I would say, the number one most overlooked part. And if some of this stuff we're talking about isn't working for you initially, that would be something that can definitely work long term. So that is a big one that is overlooked, is trapped emotions, emotional stress that, again, is associated via the metal element, the colon, in Chinese medicine. Big one. Do a quick Google or DuckDuckGo search or whatever search engine you want to use and understand that, because it's a major one. Dysbiosis. Now, again, bacteria, fungi, virus, yeast, mold, parasites, if they are present, again, this is where something like biocidin could be helpful, or going through a cleanse with regenerative superfoods can be really helpful, because if you start clearing some of this stuff out, it can help go to the bathroom. This is a big one. This is why I talk about, particularly with weight loss and waist loss, which is why I talk about these two together. That was me. You have to kind of address it. Plenty of different herbal tinctures that you can use. If you have certain testing done, sometimes that could lean, say, more using like an oregano versus a golden seal versus something like biocidin versus Super Cleanse R. There are tons of herbs out there. I highly recommend working with someone. And this is where, like, if you want to, again, check out the Inner Circle, I have like a 90-day protocol that's on there. And if you show up to the calls every week, I could kind of guide you through how to do a general one and guide you through that. And then just kind of being self-conscious. So this kind of goes back to the emotions and what I was talking about in college. Like, Sometimes it's just feeling more comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and being in a sympathetic dominant state. So, breath work becomes a really important tool here for this because it's something that it's one of the only tools we have that can allow you to get out of a sympathetic state and into a parasympathetic state. And believe it or not, when I do my deep breathing exercises, particularly in the morning, and I've talked about this with actually patients too, like they will notice like they might have to go to the bathroom after. And that has something to do with like the nitric oxide production, particularly if you're nasal breathing. Not only do you shift into more of a parasympathetic mode, you increase nitric oxide, which is a smooth muscle relaxer, and can allow you to eliminate more efficiently. So breath work is absolutely one of the tools we have at our disposal to improve this here. Vitamin C flushes are fantastic. Let's talk about some solutions now. Vitamin C flushes. So very straightforward. You take like an ounce, ideally of a freshly squeezed orange juice. You could use another citrus if you want, grapefruit juice. You could juice a couple limes or lemons. I would take a teaspoon of arrowroot powder, and then you could add. This is kind of optional. You can add like I like a vitamin C powder, ideally from Whole Foods. So I prefer C from Nature. And again, if you can find all this actually in the free group, you can find the link on how to get this stuff. Very simple. You blend this up, mix it up, swallow, drink, and let it do its thing. If you happen to have diarrhea, maybe you need to lower the amount a little bit. So start slow. That might be too much. You could do half a dose. But vitamin C flush, super, super helpful. If you want like a more natural laxative recipe, if you have a notepad, very simple. Take a cup of like lukewarm water, 2 to 3 prunes. And if you want to make it a little sweeter, you can add like a tablespoon of honey. And then blend it together, and then just drink. Ideally, you want to do this on an empty stomach, so either towards the end of the night or for maybe early in the day. That'll help. If you want to start with something a little gentler, sometimes simply just warm water in the morning can be enough. Now, you can always add lemon to that if you want, or limes. That will give you an electrolyte boost that can help. Sometimes we want to talk about hydration. Electrolytes go a really long way in balancing that. So you get the sodium, potassium, the magnesium, the chloride, the missing one, calcium, that can help kind of find that balance, help the kidneys, and then help kind of go. There is an herbal route you can go, but again, with some of these, I do not recommend them for longer than like a week to 10 days at a given time because they can be addictive. My favorite is called Colax by MediHerb, Colax. It has Cascara Sagrada, dandelion, chamomile, yellow dock. But again, if I ever recommend that to people, it's not for more than a week at a time. It's literally just to get you going while you're doing this other stuff. I would not do it for more than 7 to 10 days in a row. Because if you do, again, it becomes addictive. Once you stop, you then rely on it, and it becomes a similar issue with enemas, which is a reason why I try to stay away from the herbs if some of this other stuff works, because there are at least specifically the ones that are going to get your bowels moving, because they can potentially be addictive. So that's why these other things. Sometimes abdominal massage can work. So you can actually do this by, this would be better prone, kind of with your knees bent, like your feet on the floor, your knees bent, so you can get deep, and you could kind of massage along, start at like the lower right quadrant and move up to the upper right, across and down, kind of in the way that food would move in the large intestine. You can massage that kind of around. You do a couple minutes, a couple times a day. Sometimes that works for people. Sometimes it could be help with like toxin elimination. So dry brushing can be really helpful. And again, dry brushing, generally you want to brush towards the heart or towards the abdomen. So from the extremities, you want to stroke say, towards the chest. You don't want to brush out. You want to only brush towards, reset, go down again. That's an option. What else we have? Sometimes self acupuncture can work, or acupressure, I should say, not self acupuncture, acupressure. So this is using acupuncture points. Certain ones that are really good, if you want to look up the specifics, we have stomach 36, which is kind of like right below the knee. We have a couple else. We have large intestine 4, that's kind of like in between the webbing of the thumb and the index finger. Sometimes that could be really helpful. That's probably a really good one to start. Large intestine 11 sometimes can be really helpful, which is kind of at the inner crease of the elbow. So if you flex, that's kind of where you could find it, and you can look up a diagram to kind of find it too. Spleen 6, which is on the ankle, so it's tough to show, but again, you could just look up pictures. So large intestine 4, stomach 36, large intestine 11, spleen 6, all can be points that you can kind of massage, and sometimes that could be helpful. Chiropractic can actually be really helpful too for certain people if there's a neurological component. There are certain vertebrae, or certain nerve roots, I should say, that are associated with digestive tract function. So sometimes having an adjustment can be really helpful. This is actually really helpful for colicky kids, or kids who might have some constipation, especially infants. Sometimes, and it'll be fairly immediate, like within minutes, like if kids are kind of backed up. A, find out why, but B, sometimes chiropractic can be really helpful. What else we have? As far as like some intellectual tools, as far as addressing the trapped emotions, affirmations are really helpful. Sometimes, our thoughts, you have to realize, affect our reality. So if there is a emotional or spiritual block, we have to start by looking in the mirror, addressing whatever that thing is we're not addressing. Feel what we have to, regardless of what technique you use, whether it's affirmations or something else. You have to feel it to heal it, and that means you have to like literally go through it, get quiet, and do it. And you could write these. I prefer speaking them, either like into a mirror. But writing is great. So having a journal, physically handwriting is much different than typing. So I would highly recommend that. What else we have? I have a list here of a couple other things. Decluttering. So just decluttering your life, whether it's where you live, your workspace. Sometimes what you will find is if you have a lot of clutter in your life, you will have a lot of clutter internally too. Could be with your relationships, could be your internal environment, could be any number of things. So, having a clean space, like look up feng shui. I actually talk about this in the inner circle. And actually if you just sign up for the library, decluttering, look up feng shui. Sometimes rearranging and getting a different vibe for where you live is enough. If you're into things like past lives, sometimes I really enjoy the work of Michael Newton. He has some of my favorite books, which are Destiny of Souls and Journey of Souls. I forget which one is the first one, but one kind of builds on the other. But it could be something you're holding on to from a past life. It could be a generational trauma type of thing. Breaking those bonds can be tricky. But obviously, the first thing to do is to identify if that's one of those things. So sometimes working with a past life practitioner can be helpful, or at least having an awareness of that. Or it could be like a generational trauma thing. So that can be one. Or chakra balancing. So again, this could be Reiki. This could be someone else who has kind of an energetic touch. It is specifically the first two chakras I find play a really big role. Or I guess the lowest chakras as far as physically where they're located, which are your sacral and root chakras, and solar plexus to a degree. A lot of these are survival needs. Basic instinctual functions we need to survive are really in our first three chakras. Particularly the solar plexus is responsible for a lot of digestion. So, if there is some sort of block in any of those, It could be, an issue, and you could either work with a practitioner, you could use color therapy. You can look, sometimes it could be crystals that are, red, orange, or yellow. That can really play a role here too. So all of those things can be an option too. And then, like I said, the emotional component plays a role. So, if you're holding on to those traumas or still working through it, like absolutely you got to address those. And if you're not, it might be an issue. And again, go back to like the TCM kind of functions that I was talking about as far as, the large intestines, the colon's function within the metal element and kind of what that stands for. So it's sometimes letting things go physically, emotionally, spiritually, chemically. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that has, some real quality, solutions and reasons. Um, yeah. So, if you want to learn more, if you want to, get some of your questions answered, join at least the free library, or you could try the Inner Circle for 7 days for free. You could hop on the call on Tuesdays. If you have any questions, I answer them there too. The link is in my bio. I'm in the process of updating everything I need to as well, so that you get the best experience with that. I will save this. It will be on YouTube. It will be on IG. Yeah. Much love. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. I'll see you soon. Have a good one. Okay, let's end that.